could start out with your name.
My name?
Don't go there. Don't go there.
Okay. This is Mike Goodyear. Mike Goodyear, like the tire.
All right. Okay, and you are a resident of Orangevale?
Yes, I lived in Orangevale for 40 years now.
Okay, so you weren't born and raised here, you moved here?
Moved here in the Methodist system. We're under appointment by the bishop, and so I served 2 other places before I came here.
Oh,
And then he assigned me to this place because it was the lowest place he could find. It really was. It's called punishment.
okay, and so you're the pastor of Pathways.
Right.
Pathways Church.
Formerly it was the Orangevale United Methodist Church, and we left the denomination in 2005 because for a number of reasons, but in the process we lost our property because they claimed they owned it, and the courts agree, so we had to leave our building. So, but we still claim the heritage. That's our, they've had other churches in there, Korean, Japanese, a lot of different things they've tried. So, but we're the inheritors of the long legacy.
So about what year did you come to Orangevale?
1982.
Okay, and that was specifically to head the church here?
I was appointed by our bishop to lead the church here.
How many were in the congregation?
Probably 40. No children, no youth, just 40 old people like me.
Okay, and can you tell me a little bit about what life was like in that respect?
For me as a pastor? Well, we were having to live in the parsonage, which is down on Central, close to Maine, and it really hadn't been kept up. A parsonage is a place the church owns where the pastor can live, but it had holes in the ceiling, and we found drugs in the house, paraphernalia. So the fellow we followed wasn't a very reputable guy. So that was, we just wanted to get out of the house. So, but we lived there 2 years. And that's because my wife said she'd never live there. So God made us live there for 2 years just to prove her wrong.
Which church was this on Central?
It's over there on Central. It's one right over here.
That's a tall spire or down the ways?
No, it's the big one with the church. You can see the tall spire, and
Okay.
9041 Central Avenue.
Okay.
So it was, it was crippling along, let's say.
So I'm not sure if you could clarify, did you have a family? Did you have children?
Yeah, we came here with our 3 kids, my wife and I, and of course the church was very pleased. They hadn't really had a decent pastor in some time, and so for us to come in as a young pastor and everything, they were very delighted, very happy to have us.
All right. Can you tell me a little bit about the daily life that you folks were experiencing?
Work-wise or family-wise?
Well, you could do both if you like.
Well, family-wise, it's just, had a couple of preschoolers, and one going into the first grade. So we were, our children were young, and so we had them all in Christian schools, Christian preschools, and Christian kindergarten. And so that was our intent, was always to keep our children in private schools, in Christian schools, because even then we knew how disastrous the education system was. So, and today is just kind of the end result of what the progressive have been planning since the turn of the century. 1900 they started with President Wilson, and it was they've been rolling down the years, getting win after win. And the biggest win was eliminating classical Christian education. So the classical education that was taught really from the time of Rome on down is no longer taught. And that means the Bible doesn't get to get taught. And so
So your emphasis was keeping your children in Christian school then?
Yeah.
Did you have a regular family life, or did you have church services every day, or?
Right. Well, a pastor's life, is different than most people think it is, but at the time, it basically was caring for the elderly in the church, doing visitations and so forth. Did a lot of funerals, very few weddings, because we just didn't have that kind of congregation at the first. And so our priority was just, ministering to the people that we had, and then beginning new programs. We had 3 kids, so we started a Sunday school, and it began to grow, and as it grew, then more people came in. So it was, we grew rather fast. By 10 years, we had about 350 in attendance, and a large Sunday school. We had a youth pastor. I mean, it was just, I took my first mission trip in those years. We took a group of 20-some to Bolivia, the Amazon jungle, and helped build a dormitory for schools back in the jungle. And that was a great trip. First one of many.
Well, what do you think your biggest accomplishment was as a pastor for this church?
Well, we won a lot of people to Christ. So a lot of people come to a Methodist church and they don't hear the gospel. And so when Methodists did come, it was their first experience hearing the Bible. So it was a big change for them. A lot of them became believers and started following Christ. And then we put a discipleship program together to help take care of them, help them to grow in their faith. And but our main emphasis was reaching the world for Christ. And that's why we took trips out into the world to touch people wherever. And I don't know how many trips we've taken now. It's probably 12 different trips to different parts of the world, places like Pakistan and Iraq. We really fell in love with Bangladesh, poorest country in the world, and so we still have a strong connection with the pastor there who leads that. He's a native there, and so he knows the land, but they face a lot of persecution, so it's very difficult. So,
can you tell me a little bit about this building?
This building?
Uh-huh.
I don't know a whole lot about this building. This is new to us.
Oh.
We bought it 4.5 years ago, but the county didn't let us in right away. So I guess it's 5 years now that we've owned it. We had to do some improvements on this main floor, and the county being the county, they made it very difficult. One time they turned us down because we had to lift a mirror 1/4 inch in one of the bathrooms. Go county inspectors. They find all the stuff.
That's kind of strange.
Well, you have to understand there's a huge anti-Christian movement in America. anti-Christian. And you get one of those guys in, and they don't make it easy for you. So,
Did you find a lot of resistance here in Orangevale, or did people pretty much accept you with open arms?
oh, we got accepted with open arms. You know, we were young and had kids, and you know, I preached fairly well, and so it was. I taught the Bible. We had a Sunday school class that I taught that was 40 people there. So as many as we had in church now, I had it in a Sunday school class.
When you were over at the Methodist Church, the old formal one there, how did you get word out about your church?
Just word of mouth. People, we didn't do any special mailings or anything like that. We didn't go knocking on doors. Just word got around. And people looking for a church home, and a lot of people pointed them to our direction, and we grew. So I had a youth pastor, had another pastor that was taking care of shut-ins, and so we had a strong ministry. And it was, you know, it was really good. We did a lot of important things back then for the community, and so that was kind of the high point of our ministry, was about 1992. And then that's when we really got into our battles with the conference, the Methodist conference. So they wanted me out. And they tried all kinds of ways to get me removed from the pastorate. So even in the Methodist Church, there's this strong division, and evangelicals like myself are not well accepted in the conference. The conference is Northern California, probably 350 some churches throughout Northern California and most of Nevada. And so, but again, you know, we were an extreme minority in the conference, and so they didn't like what we had done here in Orangevale, because they meant it as punishment, and it came out that it's a pretty solid church. And so they were wanting to get rid of me so they could put somebody else here, somebody of a more liberal persuasion, not like us.
But you've been here, you said, for 40 years?
Yeah. Yep. 40 years. So they didn't win. They put me on trial several times. But the trial, we have a discipline that's like a book, and the trials are set up in there so that if you're on trial in the conference, they have to follow a certain procedure. Well, out here they weren't used to following the discipline, they just did what they wanted. And every time I was on trial, it came up at the end that when the trial started, that they had broken my rights. They couldn't keep the discipline. And so one of the bishops who was in charge of the trial, who really never liked me, never voted for me, and he said, I can't proceed with this because you guys aren't doing your job right. Because they knew that it would be thrown back in their face by the church at large. So, yeah, they lost every time. And so they finally just said, well, if you'd retire, you know, we'll just drop everything. So I said, okay, I'll retire. So I retired and stayed in the church and kept leading the church. And then they got to the point where they were just going to punish the church and bring another pastor in because we weren't paying them the money they wanted, you know. They wanted about 15% of our income, and we didn't like what it was being used for, so we didn't pay. Kind of a rebel. That's why they didn't like me. I know. They just, you know, the things that we believed in, they didn't. And, you know, we believe in the inspired Word of God. We believe that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, that He died on the cross, rose from the grave, is in heaven, and the Holy Spirit is working in the world now through his people to bring about the culmination of the age. And so we've just been involved with that, doing the best we can. And but when we left the building over here, we had to make several stops because we didn't have a real place to go. We didn't buy a place, so we met in the when we left, we first rented a place over on Kenneth and Madison that it's kind of a little shopping center. They used to have a Starbucks there, but we took the center stage, the centerpiece, which was the biggest part, and they wanted $21,000 a month, and we offered them 12, and they didn't have a better offer, so they let us in. So we stayed there for about 5 or 6 years, and it was a money crunch all the time, but we still had a good ministry going, and it was, growing, and it's a nice facility, but it was just killing us financially. So we left there, and even getting into that building, the county gave us trouble. Originally it was a pizza place for young children with all kinds of games and everything in there, so they'd have, all these things for children to do in there. And they were, had up to 200 people in there at times. But when we got there, the sprinkler system wasn't good enough. And so we're just used to that kind of thing, so we had to wait till we could get that fixed, and it was good enough for 200 pizza kids, but it wasn't good for us. So you just wonder, Yeah. So then we met in homes for a while, and while we were trying to get into the building, and finally we got in. Then when we left there, we decided that we needed to buy somewhere, and so we were looking for a place to stay, so we met at Mount Vernon for a while, and they let us. That was really kind of them. And then when we left there, we went to the bingo hall, which is behind Rayleigh's shopping center, and he was so very kind to us and let us meet there free of charge, because we were saving our money to buy something. And so we were there probably 5 years, and then we came here and we bought this, but then they wouldn't let us in, and so that was a huge roadblock for us. And then when the coronavirus hit, it was even worse. So we lost most of the congregation during those years.
Oh.
Yeah. So that's, it was sad, but.
How large is the congregation now?
About 40.
Oh, okay.
Same as when I came. Yeah. So we're the oldest church in Orangevale because we started in 1890. Oldest church, one of the oldest buildings, and certainly the oldest pastor. So that's a trifecta. It's all three. So, but I'm ready to retire, and they're looking for somebody now. So
this is your retirement interview, so to
yeah,
speak.
kind of. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it could be. Could well be. So, our home environment was really, really nice once we moved out of that parsonage and got into our own home, and we've lived there since '84, and so raised our kids there, and we had a real nice system because my wife didn't like to get up early in the morning, and I could get up early, so she took care of the kids during the night, and then from 5 o'clock on it was my business. And so she slept in. So as the kids got older, I fixed their breakfast and packed their lunch boxes and took them to school, and then I went to church. So it was a nice system. And then when the kids got out of school, then I'd go pick them up and then spend the rest of the afternoon from like 3:30 to 5:30 at home, where we had dinner together, and then I would go back to work.
So you were a full-time pastor.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't have another job
No.
outside the church.
No,
Yeah.
not at all. Finally, we got to the point where my wife had to work, and so she's an interior design person. She has her degree, and so she went and worked at different companies. And that really helped the income. The kids were older, so they could, we could do that.
Did any of your children end up becoming pastors or
No.
going to the religious life?
No, well, they all have Christian life. They all have the religious life.
Yes,
So
yes.
So my youngest son, teaches junior high at a Christian school, and then my middle son, he works for New York Life, and he considers that his mission field, and so he witnesses rather heavily to some of his people that he comes in contact with, and God has really blessed him there. He's got a tremendous business going. And then our daughter, two of our kids got master's degrees. Steve got a master's and Sherry got a master's. And she has always had a heart for children, and so she worked for me for about 10 years. And our children's program just went through the roof with her leading it. But now she has her own company. She is a licensed marriage family life counselor, but they deal specifically with children below the age of 5 who have been abused. And so she is very gifted with that. The business grew rather rapidly, so she's got 2 others working for her now, and their shop is in Roseville. So, yeah, so they're all Christians, and we all get together every Sunday for dinner. So all of them live within 2 miles of us, so we're kind of spoiled. So
that's great.
yeah, so two. Let's see. I have 3 children, 9 grandchildren, and then Sherry is adopting 2 more, so we got 11. And they're all here, and we all eat together at my wife's mother's house, and eat there every Sunday. She's 93 and cooks dinner, and
Wow.
so it's
It's a lot of people for that.
Yeah.
Grandmother.
oh yeah, and she did it for years and years, and so finally, after her husband died, after Ted died, then we decided that we needed to give her some time, and so we've been rotating from house to house. So sometimes Jan and I'll host everybody, and sometimes Steve will, and Scott will. And then she takes the first Sunday of every month. So, and whenever there's a birthday, it's got to be at her house. So
That's a great tradition.
yeah, it is. It is. You don't find it any longer. I mean, it's very rare.
True.
And we were just blessed to have our children stay. That's can't get any better than that. So, yeah, so our life was full. I got my doctorate before I came here, and it's in counseling and therapy, and so I do a lot of counseling with people. Really did a lot back in the day, but since how we've lost so many people, I don't do much anymore. But we have problem people that have issues, and so I'm always open to take care of them. We don't charge anybody. We just try and help them.
Did your children have any social events they went to when they were growing up?
Yeah, the schools provided those, so it was, just events that the whole school would be involved with, and so they would do certain things, dinners and different things, and dances, and I mean, it was So they got a good education. But again, it's a lot different than today's education. And there's a lot of people upset with the way that progressives has owned education now. And people found out about it when the COVID, they're home with their kids. The kids are learning online, and all of a sudden the parents are looking at what the kids are learning. And they said, no way. And so got a huge pushback against them. And I mean, they were talking sex education to kindergartners. And they talk about transgender to first and second graders. And you get to choose. I mean, it just mixes the kids up. It's a horrid thing. But it's going on all across America. But so we've not been involved with that at all.
But you do want to start a youth program here, right?
Yeah, we'd like to start a children's program, a youth program. And that's why it's important, I think, to get a new pastor. You get a young guy in here, and he'll attract younger people. And hopefully they'll come with kids and be able to grow it from there. But just like we did back in the day. And so, you know, it's a nice appointment as far as, you know, for a pastor to come here. It's a beautiful building. We've got great location with, you know, 20-some thousand cars every day going up and down. So, you know, a younger pastor, we want somebody with experience, maybe 10 years experience. So that way they kind of know what to do. We don't want to train somebody out of seminary.
Do you see yourself in your retirement assisting the new pastor, or do you plan to really retire?
No, we're here. We're a part of Pathway, and we'll stay a part. And, you know, whatever the incoming pastor wants us to do, we'll try and do it, you know, to help him and to lead the church forward. You know, a lot of times when pastors take a day off or something and they need somebody to preach for them, well, I can do that. So, yeah. It's not going to be easy to let go, I know. But I'm going to try my best.
You're going to be one of those that raises their hand during service?
Could I have a question? No. Not going to happen. So, yeah, if the people have issues they want to discuss with the new pastor, they can talk to the new pastor, not to me. I'm going to stay out of that. So,
What are some of the plans you can discuss for this church that you'd like to do in the future?
oh man, my vision, but I won't be able to fulfill it, but my vision was to buy the property next door. There's a lady who bought that before we could, and she's renting out the house here. But with her renting out the house and the driveway where it is, there's no access to the back. So there's, you know, a couple of acres back there just sitting. Nobody's doing anything with it. Well, we have access to it because we have a chain gate between us. And so I'd like to buy that and bring some modular homes in for classrooms, get a couple of those, build a playground, and then we'll have, you know, a tremendous ability to do children's education. And that'll really help, you know, grow the church. And then I want to buy the apartments on the other side of it. There's an apartment complex just right down the road on the other side that we'd like to buy for recovery. Right now we have recovery groups meeting here 5 nights of the week that meet here. Well, I'd like to buy that complex for an in-home place where people can go and start to recover. And then there's another motel down the street that is an older one, and I'd like to get that too and use that for some of our retired military who are on the street, you know, and they're just struggling. And we have a lot around here. And so I would like to get that for them and help them to start rebuild their lives. That's as far as I've gone. Yeah, I've always had a big dream, and that's what took me into the world. And so we have people in Bangladesh that watch our program every Sunday morning, and so that's kind of exciting. And I want to get back there. So I don't know that I can qualify to fly on international because of COVID, but whatever. God's in charge of that.
That's one of your goals, is to revisit Bangladesh.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'd love to go back there, take a team with me and do some medical work. There's a whole group of people that have been chased out of Myanmar, which is just to the north of them, kind of northeast. And these people have just been brutalized. The Myanmar government was killing them. And so they had to leave. They're called the Rohingyas. And they invaded Bangladesh, and they're on this little peninsula. And there's over 1 million people living there. They're all refugees, and they make their own little huts, out of cardboard or whatever they can find. And Bangladesh won't let them go further in. They don't want them. And they go back to Myanmar, they get killed. So what do? So they're just stuck. And so we've taken medical teams there. And we've, one time the NATO tried to get us kicked out. And yeah, we were unfair competition. Their sites, they just run kind of like machinery. But we were there to love on the people. So not only did we give them good care, but we loved them. We played with their kids, and they loved us. They didn't like that. So NATO didn't like it. They wanted us out. So he said, "You're going to be out of here by tomorrow." And so, yeah. So I found a Bengali general who was kind of in the area, and I told him what was happening. And he said, "Don't worry." He said, "I'll take care of it." Never saw the guy again. We just stayed there and finished our ministry. But yeah, there's a lot of persecution worldwide against Christians. They just don't like us. So we understand, because we preach that Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. We believe that Jesus taught us to love everybody and treat them with compassion, and so we do. But we also have a set of morals that we really believe in, and we follow those. So it's we try and spread that into the world. Our biggest contact is always with our translators. The people who we go to see, though, they love us for what we're doing, and we're there playing with their kids. And you should see them when we bring clothes out. Man, it's just it's almost a mayhem as they come in for the clothes and everything that they need. And so we just want to love them and show that love through the medicine, through the clothing, through whatever we can do. But the translators that we have, they're always touched the most by what we do. And so we have special time with them and can really explain why we're there, share Christ with them. So, yeah, and some of them became followers. So, yeah. So that's the goal.
Do they see your services on Sunday mornings?
In Bangladesh?
Yeah.
Yep. They tune in. So we our biggest trip, our most successful trip, was in Iraq, and we were just like maybe 12 miles from where ISIS was, where they had their camp, and they'd killed so many people in the area. So we were close to them, but not not in their area, really. And, the buildings were all blown apart and everything. It's just, it's a terrible thing.
You have to be careful to call yourselves Christians.
Yeah, we don't call ourselves Christians when we go overseas, because Christians, the word Christian carries the connotation of the invaders, the people who would go in and try and win Jerusalem back from the Muslims. These were the invaders that really didn't do Christianity any favors. They were very brutal, and so we don't want to be associated with the Crusaders. So we call ourselves followers of Jesus. And the Muslims, they're open to that. They believe that that Jesus is a great prophet. They believe in the four Gospels, the Injil, they call it. So it's a part of their reading. They don't read it, but it's a part of their reading. But we can challenge Muslims to try and read it. And so they ask what we're doing there. We're just following Jesus. Jesus brought us here. And so we're here to love and to give you what we can. And so, and that has made a big impact on a lot of people. So, yeah. But we went through a lot of stories combined with all the journeys that we had. So they're fun to relive, go back through.
What was Orangevale like going through that for 40 years?
What do you mean? What was Orangevale like? The transition?
Socially.
Oh, yeah. It's just really grown. And I think that's part of the reason the church grew, because of that. And people don't know what Methodism is. And so all kinds of people would come because it was a Methodist church. So that helped us in our growth. But we did what we could with what God gave us, and so it's been a good run. So, been pastoring for almost 50 years, and 40 years here at Orangevale.
And you got some ambitious plans.
Yeah, still do. Yeah. So till we find somebody, I'm going to just keep preaching and keep pushing ahead. We had a good meeting last Saturday, and a lot of dreams and visions of what we could do to help grow the church, and we're going to put them into practice. So that's
Do you have any plans to start a children's choir?
well, that will come with the children's ministry, and it depends on who we have. If you have somebody in the congregation who can lead children in singing, we'd do that. So you work with what you've got. So however that comes, we just weave it into what we're doing, and it works. It really does. So I was getting ready for this meeting, so I was reading when we had our 100th anniversary back in 1990. We put a whole booklet together about what that was about, and so I went back and read that, and it's got pictures and everything of the congregation, and man, it just brought back a flood of memories, because we were rocking and rolling back then. Yeah, and we had, you're here on the good side. We had our difficulties and struggles, like anybody does, but they're not as fun to talk about. So, like when I was on trial, but the church always stood behind me. They never were worried. They knew I'd come through.
Well, I'd like to congratulate you if and when you retire.
Yeah, I've got things I want to do, so
Yeah.
retirement will give me the time to do that. I'm a photographer, and so I take a lot of photos wherever we go. So I've got thousands and thousands of photos from all over the world. And so I want to go through them and we've got some of them blown up in our home, and we've had some here, and we had walls that we could hang them on, but we don't have a place here to hang them. But beautiful people, and yeah, a lot of memories.
Is there anything that you'd like to add to our conversation?
Well, I think we kind of covered all the bases. Orangevale's been a great blessing to us, and we really appreciate the community and everybody in it. And so it's a friendly community, and we really love being here. So you've heard of Jan's Lounge, haven't you? Over there near the. It used to be Big O Tires, but I don't know. It's a Goodyear store now, and we always joked because my wife's name is Jan, so we always ask her what she's doing in her lounge, and so one day, and this is not too long ago. I mean, our kids are adults, and they decided they wanted to go there inside and see what it was like. So they did. They had a fun time in Jan's Lounge. Yeah.